That is not going back on.
Said this is so sick.
This is it, guys. This car is sitting on the fenders right now. Who put that there? How about that for a thumbnail? It's not rubbing at all.
Made in Japan. I don't think that's supposed to be like
fine.
that.
Yep, we're spinning.
What are you doing? Yo! Welcome back to Fitment Industries YouTube channel. As you can see behind me, we've got a whole bunch of brand new cars here. If you guys missed our first vlog, we did a move-in day. We talked about a little bit of the modifications that we're gonna do to all these cars. Well, today we're starting our very first build, the 1992 Acura NSX. That is a first-gen, super clean Acura that we're gonna cut up and make beautiful, I promise you. Now, the Acura NSX is a really special car because it has essentially a McLaren F1 inspired suspension that Gordon Murray took and replicated on the McLaren F1, and it's also known as the Ferrari Killer. All right, so of course, first let me introduce Andrew.
What is up, everybody?
And then we have Austin Rampage.
What's up?
So we're gonna talk about these modifications in just a second, but this NSX is gonna be the coolest vehicle on the planet, I promise you. Well, the coolest NSX on the planet, of course. And once we're all done with it, because we're doing a bunch of performance modifications too, we are gonna put this thing up to race against some of the coolest supers and hypercars on the planet. I promise you it's gonna be awesome, and we are gonna make this thing super cool. Of course, at fitmentindustries.com, that is what we do. We modify cars. We sell wheels, tires, suspension, performance accessories. Everything that we're using today and that we're going to use throughout this vlog series will be sourced from fitment.com. So go check it out if you guys need some of that stuff. All right, so on to the mods. And I do want to point out that everything that we have picked has been carefully handcrafted. This is stuff that we wanted to put on the vehicle versus what manufacturers push down our throats, because ultimately we want to put on something that's going to perform and look the best for the vehicle. Why don't we start with the body kit? What are we doing with that?
I'm super excited. We're putting a Liberty Walk widebody kit on this thing.
Hell yeah.
We're also going to be throwing a really cool air suspension setup on this so we can get that flush fitment.
And then we have some awesome upgraded brakes that we're gonna do, and we're gonna powder coat to match this because we're gonna actually vinyl wrap this thing a completely different color, and I'm really excited for that one.
So of course, this is Fitment Industries. We're putting wheels and tires in this thing. We're gonna get some rotiform wheels and Nexen tires on it.
Those look really badass. I can't wait to see those things, and they're gonna fit perfect with the air ride.
Very excited.
You gotta tell them about I think the most expensive mod. Let's hear it.
I'm really excited about this. We are planning on going twin turbo with this car.
Yes,
it's gonna be sick.
It's gonna be a beast. And of course, with the twin turbo, we're gonna throw on a exhaust system that comes from the same place that does the twin turbo. More on that later, but it's gotta sound really good if it's gonna perform really well. And you also mentioned for the twin turbo build, we actually have to completely strip apart this motor, take pistons out, replace cam bearings, crankshaft bearings. So it's gonna be a full engine out, crazy swap, and we're gonna film it all for you guys. Without further ado, I think we should let you do what you do best and get this air ride installed, but you guys gotta unbox it and show the people what an awesome looking kit this is. So let's do that. You guys can have
Let's do it.
Let's see what we have. Got some nylon tubing, some harnesses, hardware, zip ties, instructions, an air compressor, another air compressor. Now the reason you would want to have two air compressors on an airlift system is basically just to fill the air tanks and to get the suspension to lift up a little quicker. This is our air tank, nice and shiny. It's supposed to be purple, so I'm excited to see what it looks like. Oh, that looks good. That's nice. Wow. Most important part, none of this can work without our control system. We've got a remote display, some wiring and hardware, it looks like. This is the super important thing to have, our valve body. This decides how much pressure to take out of each wheel. This is our Airlift 3P management system. We'll go over the rest as I install it. Let's get started. Now that I think about it, I don't have the lug nut socket. Back down it goes. There she be. These trunk struts are looking pretty sad. So definitely gonna need some new ones of those later on. All right, take two, one out. I actually got really scared. I didn't know if we had one or not, so I'm really glad it was in the trunk. Now we can take the wheels off. Imagine it be the wrong size. Now technically, you're not supposed to use an impact on these sockets. You're supposed to use a breaker bar on the ground, but we're getting rid of these lug nuts, so it's fine. Just hopefully it doesn't crack. This one feels a little goobered. Oh yeah, check it out. There's a little bit of glitter in there.
Oh boy.
Cross thread is nature's Loctite. Don't use your hand, it hurts. Now when something like this happens, so we're gonna take off the sway bar links next. So that way we can get these control arms to sink down a little bit lower, get these struts pulled out. Well, day late and a dollar short, looks like we're going wrench. Yep, we're spinning.
Oh boy.
Vice grips. If you're planning on keeping your sway bar links, you might want to be careful on where you're grabbing with the vice grips. But since we're upgrading these anyways, I don't care if I tear the boots. And that's how you get her done. It almost seems like the threads never end. Now you can see with this sway bar link taken off, you can actually pull the control arm down. How we're going to be able to take these out is by putting a pry bar right here. We're gonna wedge it and then pull it down. Obviously we gotta remove the nuts up top, but as soon as we get those removed, pull this down, we can hopefully slide this strut out. So first thing that we need to do before we remove the nuts, we have to loosen up this coupler here, which holds on the brake hose here.
Is it supposed to be like this?
I don't think that's supposed to be like
fine.
that. No,
That'll
it's
be
fine.
fine.
We're cooked.
Yeah. Time to go down to the lift so we can pop the frunk and loosen up the nuts for the struts.
Dude, where's the engine?
What? Where? Whoa!
The engine's a wheel.
That doesn't look like an engine.
That's crazy.
What is that? Why is it orange?
Because it's
So
supposed to
everybody knows
be.
you have a spare on, I don't know.
Yeah, it's supposed to be humiliating, so you change it out quickly. If it looked good, everyone would just rock the spare.
could believe
This is the most
I could believe that.
ridiculous spare I've seen in my life.
Now we can go back up in the air. Okay, now all I need to do is remove the brake hose off of this side and we can go ahead and use a pry bar, get the strut out. All right, boys, we're gonna use
big boy.
We're gonna use Big Bertha for this job.
Big Bertha.
Andrew, can you hold this freaking thing down?
Okay.
Bam.
That was what you wanted?
That's what I wanted. All right, so now I'm going to get myself a little bit of room. These bolts hold this ABS wire on. It's getting a little bit in the way to try to pry this thing out. So pulled it out. So now we can pry this strut out. Hopefully we can get enough room. Andrew! I really should be wearing safety glasses.
This is so sketchy.
So now we need to probably take a different route here because it's just barely not wanting to come out. I don't have schematics on me. We're pretty much just going with what we have here. We're gonna just pull off one of these bolts that are holding in the control arm bushing. So now, finally free. Finally free.
Let's go.
Look at that. It's probably gonna be a two-person job. Hey, Andrew? I require assistance. While he's taking his sweet-ass time coming over here, I'm gonna pull this plastic cover off so he can stick a bar on the lower control arm since this one's a little floppy now.
Sweet ass time.
Oh, okay.
There she
Boom,
be.
baby.
And now you take this nut off and throw the grenade on the ground. Now let's do the other side.
3 more times.
Damn.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
He's Big Bertha. There we go.
Dust falling off of that. Look at that.
A little crusty.
A little crusty.
All right, so now we're gonna pop the trunk to be able to access the rear struts. That is not good. Gonna have to. Anyways, so until we get new struts, I'm gonna use vice grips to hold it up.
If it works, it works.
Gotta take these bolts off, and that'll actually make it so we can get to the rear shocks. Who put that there? So yeah, just taking a bunch of these screws out. You know, I really should not be holding screws in my hands over the engine bay. Is there a screw in there? No, somebody forgot to put it in when they put it back together last time. All right, well that helps us. But now I'm 1 screw short. All right, so now we got all the screws up there. And now we have complete access to our struts. Okay, so now that we got all the nuts off on the top side, we can work on the bottom side. Okay, so now for the back, it's actually gonna be way easier than the front. It's really just 1 bolt I have to take it off. The interesting part about this setup is that the bolt that holds on the strut is actually part of the sway bar link. So, killing 2 birds with 1 stone, getting the sway bar link out of the way, taking that lower bolt off. Okay, now that's pivoted out of the way. Let's see if she's gonna play nice. Down
Ready?
on it. Yep. All right, so we got this side out. It really takes a couple of people to help out with it. Okay, that's out. All right, now is when we're gonna need some assistance. Get some help.
Yeah, let's do it.
Maximum beefage. Maximum beefage. All right, so now that we've got all of our old struts out, let's go check out the new kit from D2 Racing and see if we need to make any adjustments. So here we have our D2 air struts. These are really nice. I do like these a lot. Front ones are actually labeled for us left and right. Everything looks to be correct here. One thing that I did notice I'm going to treat this as our left rear. I don't like how this 90-degree fitting is out just a little bit. So if this is on the left rear, this will be kind of facing out towards the wheel. I want it tucked in just a little bit closer to the control arms. So we're going to adjust this plate here. Let's crack it a little bit, and we're gonna rotate this plate until I'm happy with it. So about right there. So now that that's where I want it to be, we'll go ahead and tighten it down. All right, so now that that's adjusted, we can go ahead and start putting them in the car. So now we're ready to put the strut in, and I've got a nut waiting in this magnetic socket. Push our control arm back in place. So now, since the strut is in on the top side, our control arm bolt is in but not tight. You always want to tighten any bolt that has to do with a bushing when it's at its comfortable ride height. Otherwise, you're torquing on that bushing, you could end up tearing it or at least prematurely wearing it out. Now that that is taken care of, we can go up with our lower control arm with the absolute no room that I have in here.
It's like a perfect fit, man.
Yeah, no kidding.
Look at that. Look at that fitment.
So we ran into a little bit of an issue where no matter where we adjusted the air struts, either from anywhere from 1 to 3 inches lower than stock ride height, we're still coming into a issue where we're rubbing on the control arm here with this bottom collar. So when we're going over bumps or we're totally airing down, we don't want that to continue rubbing to take the paint off of our lock ring. So we're gonna take a little bit of material off, just a little bit. This is my automatic file, not a grinder. Don't think of it as a carbide bit, think of it as an automatic file. So now we'll just go ahead and do a spin test. And it's still hitting just a little bit.
Grind it down a little more.
Just a little bit.
File it down.
Automatic file, not a
Automatic
carbide
file,
bit.
not a grinder. Get it right, guys.
Look at that.
Perfect.
And you can
Look
see
at
right
that.
here, that's where it was starting to rub before. So we'll just make sure that's on the backside. But as you can see right now, it's not rubbing at all. All right, now let's go ahead and install our rear struts. There it is.
Smooth as butter. Look at
Smooth as
that.
butter. I might have to take this sway bar link all the way off, or at least take, you know what, it's gonna be easier to take these bolts out. I don't wanna mess with that. Just made it that much easier. Sometimes you have to use a motivational tool. So we'll just tighten that up. We'll do the other side. We'll get the sway bar back up, bolted on, and then we'll go down with the lift so we can put the nuts on the top. The back is done. The only other thing that I will do, you can see right here, I want to rotate this bag a little bit to make sure this 90-degree is actually fully in the back here. Because unlike the front, we have all sorts of room back here behind the strut to be able to put this, get this out of the way, make sure it's as cleaned up as possible so you can't see the airlines. There it is. All right, so now we're gonna go down and put the nuts on the top of both the rear struts. Now we're gonna use our precision torque wrench. Make sure it's tight.
That is an amazing torque wrench.
Yeah, it's close to
love that thing.
4 to 5. Agadugas?
Look at Douglas.
Last thing we need to do is put this plastic cover back on, and we can get moving on to laying out how we want our air tank, compressors, and the rest of the setup to be in the trunk. Sometimes when you can't get a regular screwdriver to fit, you gotta use stubby bob to do the job. Cool, so the cover's on, so now we just need to go all the way down to the ground to be able to get as much room as possible to work around this area to get our layout set up. This is everything that comes in the kit, along with, we also got an additional air compressor. So we have our air tank. It's actually very light, so that's nice. So the air compressors also come with the replaceable filters. We have some mounting hardware for the air compressors. We have our electronic valve body or module, whatever you want to call it. Our wiring for both air compressors. Got some tubing. Next we have a filter that goes in line here. This takes out pretty much all the moisture that might be sitting inside this tank. And just so you know, if you're running air ride, you need to make sure you're draining these tanks at least once or twice a month. Once this is hooked up, that is basically what you're going to use to set up all of your presets and different ride levels. You can also use, with this system, the 3P system, you can use your phone, and it works with Android and Apple. So that is really, really nice, and I'm definitely gonna utilize that. So this is pretty much how I think we're going to have this set up. We're gonna have one compressor over in this corner, and then another one in this convenient little cubby spot here. We need to make sure that the air lines are on the bottom, because this side has the spot for your air drain. Now I'm gonna start tearing out this interior to be able to figure out how we want to basically mount the tank and the air compressors. My plan is to take like plywood and put it underneath this. Unfortunately, we do have to drill through this, but is it really gonna bother you that much? Because we're also putting a wide body kit on here, and it's a Liberty Walk one, so fenders will get holes.
Oh, that was satisfying.
Satisfying.
That was so satisfying.
Dude, there's so much dirt.
Oh, brother. Ooh.
All right, so this is actually gonna be pretty easy. We're gonna run the harnesses and the tubing through these grommets here. So we won't have to drill holes into the actual metal. And for the right side rear, run it through there. I can replace this grommet with a little bit bigger body. Should be able to just put plywood here. So I think I'm gonna shape a piece of plywood to go here. And I wanna make sure that this isn't going to be covered at all, because we still wanna be able to get to the spare tools and whatnot for whatever's left. I mean, we still have this lug wrench. So now that we have our wood all cut out and we're letting this dry overnight, I want to have this foam on here to be able to act as vibration dampening. So now what we need to do is figure out how we're going to route these harnesses and tubing up front. I'm going to go ahead and cut these zip ties, and we'll figure out what seals or firewall grommets we can use or change out to be able to run these. This one comes out this way, really easy. And now what we'll do is install one of these grommets. We'll cut a slit right here so we can go around these and around the tubing. We can do the same thing for the other side. Boy, does that look like a lot of fun. Yeah, how about that for a thumbnail? We should definitely be able to run all of these through this grommet here, and the secondary can come through this grommet around the engine going this way. We just need to make sure we keep it out of any sort of heat.
And why are you doing this?
Basically to keep all the wires together so it's not a mangled mess when we're trying to run it up front. Especially if we have to push it or pull the harness, it's gonna stay together. So I'm gonna use a different color tape so that way I can tell which one is holding the airline. So it's easy to pull everything through a frame. Now that that's over, we have a little bit less of an unorganized mess. So at least this is all tied together and ready for us to run it through the firewall and route it to the front. So now that we have all of this somewhat organized, we can run it through the driver's side firewall grommet. We'll pull everything almost all the way through except for what little amount of cable we're gonna need to hook up to the air compressor. So I'm trying to think if it's going to be better for us to run this inside of the car, underneath the carpet, through both firewalls. Either run it that way or the way that everybody else usually does it, along the brake lines. Yeah, I'm 100% not doing this under here. I think it's through here. I don't know, man, I've never worked on an NSX. Just a bunch of cords. I see the brake lines here. Dude, I think the brake lines are ran through the inside of the car.
No way.
That's awesome. I love that.
That's crazy.
You do not see that every day. Looks like we're gonna be trying to run it through the inside of the car, which I'm pretty happy with. So this boot right here, you can see that rubber boot where that giant harness is going through. We're gonna try to use that to be able to run this harness into the body of the car, down this pillar here, through this carpet, underneath the carpet, and then straight to the battery, because the battery is in the front. So let's go ahead and run this through. Okay, this is actually a lot of wire that we have to run for
Yeah, this is like
just 2 compressors.
this is ridiculous.
Maybe we should have gone with 1 air compressor. So now we are ready to go ahead and open the door. We're gonna move the seat forward. We're gonna try to take off some of these interior panels to be able to get to wherever. Can't really see it, but there's a boot right there. And then on the driver's side, there's another boot over there. I want to be able to gain access to that so we can pull these harnesses through up front to the battery, and the tubes can go to the front bags. I'm going to try my best not to have to take the seats out of this. First part coming out. And there's 2 parts to pull off here. Rubber window strip.
Self-tappers from the factory.
Well, that's not cool.
W coming.
Gotta be really careful because a lot of this is probably brittle plastic from the 90s. The fiberboard is just born to fall apart. Before we pull any of the wires through or start messing with that boot, since it is tied to a computer back there, we're gonna go ahead and disconnect the battery. So the actual mounting spot for this spare tire is no longer in here, so it's just held in here with a zip tie. Most of the time you can just get away with using a pick or a knife as long as you're careful. And you can remove the zip tie, reuse it later. And now we can get to our battery. We're gonna replace these battery terminals too. They do not look like they're in good shape. Now we can pull that boot out. So here's the boot. We're just gonna take a plastic trim tool and try to push it out. Great success. So we got a slight problem here. We have a fan that is definitely in the way of us doing any sort of work with this harness boot. So we need to remove this fan and all the harnesses that are connected and bolted to it. Here's our spinning boy that brings cold air into the engine bay. Now that that's out of the way, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this old electrical tape here. Actually, I might be able to unwind it. This is probably gonna be the hardest part of this whole job, is trying to get this harness to pull through. I'm gonna make a small slice in this electrical tape going over the boot so we can actually slip this harness past. Now let's see if we can get this to go through this little spacing. We'll see if we can stretch her out enough. All right, so we've got a couple of options to try here. We're gonna first try some dielectric grease. So we're gonna squirt some on this to help it glide through. Bro, I don't know what to say. That doesn't sound sus, okay?
Bro's lubing it up.
So now I'm pulling it through this boot here. Now that this is good to go, we can wrap this in electrical tape. And we'll get it as weather tight as possible. And I think at the end of this, I'm also going to put some liquid electrical tape at the end just to fully seal everything. Now that we have our harness routed, we're ready to put this fan back in. So the other side, driver's side, to get this air box off, it's pretty simple. It's just 3 bolts and then a vacuum line. Just be careful not to break it. Then I'm taking this bracket off here. Now we're pretty much gonna do the same exact thing we did from the passenger side to the driver's side. It's about the same process. So now we've got our harnesses pulled through the firewall on the passenger side and the driver's side. The first hard part is over. Now we're going to pull off the side covers. You'll pull the carpet up. So the goal is to try to run the harness in this same pocket here. More brittle plastic.
Is it broken?
Yeah, these are broken, but
Oh, man.
this is just the hardware. Get that lifted up. that's loud. Let's just feel around and make sure that it's fully tucked. All right, so now it's time to become a contortionist. This is my least favorite part of being a mechanic. So I just got all this carpet out of the way and removed a couple of these bolts in this metal shield. We should be able to find the grommet in the firewall where we're going to stick this through on the passenger side. So we're going to put some of our schlube on, a little bit of dielectric grease. And now I'm going to follow the power wire up off of the amp here. I'll tell you what, I should really start doing yoga. Tom, go ahead, go up front, see if you can see it come through.
Let me see.
Yeah, I got it. Yep.
Can you pull it through?
Yeah, I can pull it through.
All right. Yeah, there we go. All right, yeah, I see it. Hey, do you need help getting out, or?
I think I'm just gonna stay here.
All right.
Maybe in the morning.
Yeah, I'll see you around.
Now that we have the passenger side harness pulled through, set this up to hook up to our ground and power on the battery. But we're gonna wait till we have the driver's side pulled through so we can splice them together at the tips of the wires. Now, what we need to figure out is how we're going to run this air tube through the body here without drilling. Originally, I would love to go through where the brake line's going, but in order to do that, I have to pull this entire blower motor box assembly out of there, and we don't have the time for that. See if we can route the tubing under the headlight assembly and pull it through here somewhere.
What was that?
Okay, here we go. We'll use this. We can route our tube to go through here and sleeve it. Now that we've got this whole harness up here, I went ahead and split the tube away from the wiring. I'm going to remove this fuse box from its little pedestal here. There's a wiring harness with a grommet going through to the underside of this headlight housing. We're gonna cut the tape, do the same thing that we did on the rear firewall. We're gonna go through, and then it's gonna make a turn to go under and into the wheel well. Wanna make sure we're not doing tight bends. We have plenty of room. We can just go straight here and keep like a loop so we don't have any tight bends. This side is routed. Now it's time to put everything back together on the inside. See, the amount of missing hardware or just missing parts in general that I found on this car is astonishing. But we had 6 missing lug nuts. The only way we could tell—
Across 4 wheels?
Across 4 wheels. The only way we could tell is because they were replaced with some Joe Schmo lug nuts.
That's not good, right?
It is what it is. It's not, you shouldn't be using those on those wheels, but
Of course.
we're replacing the wheels anyways. Okay, so this side is a little bit different with the plastic hardware in here. That has to be clocked a certain way, then it gets pulled off. And then there are actually not just a screw back here, and then there's 2 screws up here that have to be taken off. Now you can slide that around the hood pop. Well, it looks like somebody stepped on this one too many times.
That is, look at that.
You can see all that old tape that was holding this thing together. Now we can go ahead and start pulling this stuff off without breaking it and running it through around it. There it is. I was afraid it was almost gonna break. There's been a pattern with that with this car.
A lot of things breaking.
A lot of 90s plastic breaking. All right, so found a spot that we're going to be running this wire through, but we're gonna need some assistance from this pick. I'm gonna put a little bit of electrical tape on the tip so I'm not scratching the brake line. We have a little tool to help us punch through. All right. Oh man, I think we got everything. Yep, even the air tube. I was worried that was not going to come with it. You just missed it, but we went through a whole process of trying to pull this wiring harness and this one air tube through. Even with all the lube in the world, it was still too tight. This tube is gonna come out that way. There should be enough length. There's 3 fuse boxes here. I just need to find a spot that I can piggyback off of for our 3 amp ignition fuse. Now we just need to figure out what fuse spot we can go off of. No labels, but this could be good for me to splice this wire in here. If I wanted to do it the right way, I would run this wire all the way up through here, just like how those are. So what I'm gonna have to do now, I'm gonna hook the battery back up, and then I'm gonna cut the zip tie. And then we're gonna pop all these clips so we can take the underside of this off. We can run this wire up with this, rewrap it, and electrical tape down here, so that way this is close to factory. So now we have our battery hooked up. I have my test light on the ground, and we're gonna check for powers. The key is on right now. So I'm looking for this thing to light up, and see how it's lighting up right there. That is a potential circuit that I could use to piggyback off of, since there's a hot running to it and there's no load connected to the other side. So let me turn the key off. I want to confirm that it's just key on power. That's how we want the system to run. It's supposed to run off of an ignition wire. This is pretty much the same thing. I'm gonna turn the ignition off. You ready?
Yeah. Yep, it turned off.
So now we have a circuit that we can use. So how I'm going to mark this to remember which terminal was the hot when key is on is basically just squeeze dielectric grease in that single terminal. I can take this fuse box apart and start running everything how I want it. Let's bust this thing open. So it looks like a tiny yellow wire, tiny yellow and black wire. Now these should just be single terminals that I can pull these brown wires out. So we have our dielectric grease on this single terminal here, and this one that goes to nowhere. Just in case these two wires need to be spliced together for whatever reason, I am going to solder them together. I am going to splice this pink wire that's supposed to be for ignition on. You go through here, splice it there. We'll pop a 3-amp fuse in, and that'll be able to power the system on that way. There we go. And now I can tape this guy to here and pull it through, and then I'll wrap electrical tape around here. Okay, so I was able to pull these a little bit further out so I can get my strippers in there. Now I can twist these here, I can solder them, and then put heat shrink over the tip. Now we're gonna cut some dual wall heat shrink, go over the sleeve. We will have just enough room. Obviously this is gonna be covered with small bit of loom. It will just barely make it to where we need it to be. All right, so now this solder connection is made. We can slide the heat shrink over. We'll get this thing sealed up, and then we'll be able to put this box back together and start wrapping this thing in electrical tape. Then we can start putting our wires, connecting those to the battery. All right, now we can put this fuse box back together, pop the fuse in, we can finish the wiring, and then we are ready to put the compressors and the tank in the trunk now. Cool, so we have our zip tie on, all of our wiring finished inside of here. That's all clipped together and ready for us to throw in a fuse. All right, so we are done here for now. Now we're gonna put the driver's side back together, and then we'll actually start putting the tank and the compressors in. All right, so now we're back to the back, and all we need to do is run the rear lines to the left rear wheel and the right rear wheel. Now the hard part is going to be getting it into, I want to go through the brake line hole.
Camera's not gonna be able to see.
No, you won't be, I can't even see it. I'm gonna go ahead and put some tape over this one, different color, so that way we know which is driver's side front, which is red and yellow, passenger side front, which is just the yellow, and the greens are going to be the rears. All of our lines are in and marked. We have all of this slack, a line rubbed through or something. I'm gonna start cutting these off because we don't need them anymore, and we're gonna start putting the interior back in for the trunk. This thing has been sitting overnight with some pressure on it. But this is what we're going to use to mount our air compressors here, and our tank here. Okay, so that's about what we're gonna look like here. But we do need to make a slit here to run this wiring and the tubing to our air compressor. Before we do that though, I'm gonna make sure we have everything at the correct height. So it'll loop in right there, where the tank's gonna go. So upon looking for a good mounting place for these relays, because I don't want them to be seen through the carpet here, but I also want them to be far enough away from the carpet to where it's not gonna cause like a fire hazard or something. Well, upon finding our mounting brackets that we're going to use, look, I think this car was red before. If you guys think I'm wrong, let me know in the comments, but I think this car was red before. Cool, so we have our relays mounted now here and here. So now what we need to do, this is for the secondary air compressor to link up with the main. So you'll plug these in here, and this wire is going to hook up to our main air compressor, and this is going to hook up to the secondary compressor. I'm going to hide all the wiring back here. So this is going to go here, and that should be all you see. Back here, I will cut a hole right here. And the bulk of this is going to fit back here, and it's going to be nice and clean, just like this. We'll do the same exact thing over here. So this is our valve body slash module. It's going to sit like right about there, and our tank's going to be somewhere like this. So there's a hole right here already, so I don't feel bad about making it bigger. This tank is actually going to cover where that hole is. Just like that. It's gonna connect there. So I've been a little busy here. I went ahead and started doing the layout. Wanted to make sure I had all my measurements set and made sure that the compressors were as straight as they can be. But I went ahead and marked with Sharpie where these are going to be sitting here, as I want the tank as close to the compressor without touching it. Because when the compressor's running, it's going to be moving back and forth just a little bit. So here's my center line. How I found center is just going from one side of the trunk to the other and just eyeballing it straight up and down. Of course, I could have put a straight edge and a level. Did this as well to confirm that I had it straight. So this is all marked out. Used my Sharpie, lifted it up, made a mark there, and then same thing on the back. Everything's marked out, everything's measured. It's time to take pretty much everything out of the trunk so we can get this carpet and wood on this sheet of steel to be able to drill our holes to make sure we're not gonna go into the concrete. So I realized that in order to make sure we're staying aligned with the wood, we should probably drill some pilot holes. So that way when we set the wood on the ground, we set the carpet on the ground, we're actually going to stay lined up rather than the wood shifting around underneath this and drilling into the wrong spots. Before we take everything out of here, I want to make sure I'm drilling into the wood. It's full of carpet, but I know it went into the wood. Okay, so that one is done. Make sure we stay holding in place. I'm gonna do this one, and then I'll do these over here. Just have to be very careful. That's why I'm using a short bit. Be very careful not to hit the metal. So I'm feeling for it. I know I'm going through like half the wood. Now we can go ahead and take everything out and do this on the ground. Okay, so we have our wood on the ground here. Before I lay the carpet out on top of it, we're gonna finish drilling through the ones that we already pre-drilled. And then what I can do is take some bolts and stick them in the existing holes to make sure that the carpet doesn't shift at all. Be sitting like this. Right now I'm just eyeballing through the top of it, through here, to watch my Sharpie point, and our mark lines up. That is done. Let's move on to this compressor. These are already marked out from when I had the compressor in here. Oh, look at that. Our marking was wrong on this one. Measure twice, cut once, right? Now we're in the right spot. What does that mean? Drilling a pilot hole, we know where we're supposed to drill. Because otherwise I'd have to move everything, then move it again, and then put everything back. All right, so we're going to make sure these are lined up fine. That's good. I think this one's actually just a little bit off. Well, that stinks. I mean, it'll still work. I just need to bore it out to 1/4 inch for all of them to fit. That one's good. These would be 3/16. Those are perfect. Almost there. Just side loaded my drill. There you go, now it'll work. Cool, now we need to figure out if we're mounting everything on the ground and putting it in. I'm gonna hope that's what we can do. Great success. All right, we are there. This is in. There we go. So this is what we have so far for everything being mounted up. Now it's time to bolt up our manifold. All right, so now we've got our fittings clocked the correct way, how I want them. You can go ahead and mount these to the board. All right, so as you can see on our little GoPro here, I was able to finagle this into place, but we've got everything here that we need except for the tank. The tank's gonna be the very last thing we're gonna bolt up. Now, we're going to hook up our lines. I've already pushed them through the carpet. Made a little slit back here, so it's nice and clean. You can barely see any of this. And then you just see the lines coming through. This needs to be connected to here. This is for the main compressor harness. The secondary compressor harness is right here. Same thing. We're gonna use butt connectors, uninsulated butt connectors, and heat shrink to go over those. To twist my ends before I make my crimps, just to make sure I get a tight connection. Now we're gonna slide on a couple of pieces of heat shrink here. Ground to ground, power to power. Confirm that's ground, crimp it. Tug test, make sure it's not going anywhere. Give it a little bit of heat. Just gotta be careful around the carpet not to catch that on fire. I've got an extinguisher. And now we'll just do the same to the rest here. Doesn't this look much cleaner? Sheesh. This fitting has an exhaust line in it, which we're actually going to run through here. This goes outside to our license plate light. I'm gonna run a tube straight here outside. So that way we don't have to worry about any moisture from this exhaust. It's gonna expel right outside the car. So now what we're going to do, put on all of our fittings here. Some of them have pipe dope or tape on them already. And we also do have a pressure relief valve here. I don't know if I'm going to use it because this one already comes with built-in pressure relief valve.
That's fancy.
Yeah, it is. The old ones didn't. And all of these, this is just for mounting location. What we're going to do now is move to the front, hook up our ring terminals, put our inline fuses in, and hook everything up to the battery. Then we'll start plumbing in all of our lines to the tanks and to the struts. And hopefully we can start doing the air calibration shortly. And these ring terminals are actually way bigger than they need to be, but this is what was supplied. So now we have a ring terminal connection point finished. All right guys, we are getting real close. Now that we have all the electrical ran here, we're gonna run our front lines to the front shocks or front air struts. Going through this wall here looks like it's gonna be the easiest way, but we wanna make sure we don't have any issues with rubbing the line all the way through. So, got a little 1/4" grommet here. Just gonna stick in there for protection. And now we're gonna run it underneath the headlight. And with me just pushing it like this, it should guide itself through. And I'm gonna put some electrical tape around here. A little crimp spot on, then go here. Now we can rotate this back just like that. Make sure it's not gonna contact anything if the ride height changes. Go ahead and lock down. As you can see here, I've got plenty of slack here, even for when the height adjustment changes. Plenty of slack. All right, so now this side is completely done. We'll go ahead and move on to the other side, do the same thing with pretty much everything. And if we need grommets on the rear, we'll do the same thing there. All right, so now we are on the back. We're gonna loosen our strut up so we can rotate our fitting so we can put our line on. I am going to clip the end here, even though it looks fine, there's some dust on there. So I'm gonna make sure I don't get anything in the bag. That is a nice clean tip, and that is what she said. So now we can get our arm day in and rotate this back where it should be. I could probably loosen the front nut. Well, anyways, it's already rotated. I was gonna say, I could probably loosen the top nut to make it easier on myself, but better for the camera if I struggle, right? Now I will need a little bit of slack just like this for height travel. Now we're gonna lock it down. Okay, so all of them are done. Now we can get back into the trunk area. All right, so we... Sorry.
Bro.
Bro, that hit the car?
Bro.
Guys, can you not do this here? We're playing football. Come on. What are you doing? Look at that. Look at that. That's great.
Ooh, there we go. All right, guys, it is time to see if this thing actually works. We've got everything plugged in the correct way, I hope. All my lines and all my fittings are connected. Now it's time for the moment of truth. Our display is connected. I'm gonna turn the key on. And we are live. There it is. So that's one compressor that just kicked in. I have not done this before, so you guys are going through it with me. English. System not calibrated. We're up to 30 PSI. We still need to do the calibration setup. We are up to about 40 PSI now. And we also do need to set this up for the secondary compressor as well. So right now it's picking up about a pound every few seconds or so. We want to go quicker than that. So I need to see where it is for starting the calibration. I don't know if we start the calibration process first and then do the secondary compressor, but we'll find out. Andrew, you hear any leaks from back there or no?
Not over the sound of a compressor. Oh, I feel it. I feel it. Yeah. Gonna throw the whole thing away.
Let's see if we can figure out how to get this calibrated. Calibration wizard, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. It's on a lift. I really hope it's on a level surface. System not calibrated. Are the front wheels straight? Yes.
Yes. Yes,
You don't
they are.
have wheels on the car.
The steering
What do you
is straight.
mean? That's not what it says. Look, go back. I don't think this guy's doing it right. I think he's gonna blow. Literally, it sounds like a ticking time bomb in the back.
That's what that is.
It's
It's
like
the manifold. I'm clicking buttons in here trying to figure out how to get back here.
sounds like a solenoid turning on and off or something.
You have one or two compressors. Ah, there we go. We have two. If you press and hold, it opens the solenoid for longer. That's pretty straightforward. And you can hear shots of air. All right, so each wheel is about 90 PSI or so. Okay, so they're all set at exactly 92 PSI. Set minimum pressure. Let's see how low this thing goes. You can probably go about an inch lower then to be on the safe side, because with bouncing we still don't want to hit the inner wheel wells. I finished doing the max air pressure in each wheel and the minimum. Now I moved on to the next step, which is actually doing the calibrating by itself. It's doing the front up and down and the rear up and down. So periodically we'll see the suspension. There you go. There you go, it's checking front. The computer is doing all of this right now. I'm not touching anything. So this is part of the whole calibration process. It wants to know.
So is that AI? Is that ChatGPT controlling the car right now?
System ready to use, calibration is successful. You got an Android or Apple?
I got a normal phone, so.
Normal phone?
Not sponsored,
So you got
but
an
it should
Android?
be. That's crazy. There's Airlift Wireless 1, Airlift Performance 3, Airlift Wireless Air,
Bro, why
Airlift
is there so
Performance
many?
3S.
Why is there
Lift.
so many?
Like,
Bro, there's so many.
I mean, this kind of looks like that, no? I think it's that. Let's try that.
All right, hold on, let's flip the page.
Manifold must be in pairing mode.
Yeah, I have no idea. Bro, I have no idea.
We're calling technical support.
Thank you for calling Papa John's. We're open and ready to
Papa
serve you.
John?
What?
Your call may...
Oh, wait.
No way, no shot. Does it work?
Pairing required. Put it in pairing mode.
How do I put it in pairing mode?
Bro, manifold needs to be in pairing mode. Is this the manifold?
Here, Bluetooth pairing mode set to on.
Wait. Pairing mode can be entered by turning the ignition on 3 seconds, ignition off 3 seconds, then ignition on. Okay. Uno, dos, tres, on.
1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi.
No, leave it on. Yes! Let's go. I knew it was a...
What?
warranty,
Register your phone.
schmarranty,
Yeah, get
alright?
out of here.
Aaron.
It says
Oh! Yo! Oh! There you go. Oh! Yo, that's crazy.
And this is so sick.
That's crazy.
Andrew, what the hell? I thought you said there was 2 finger lengths.
What's the problem?
There's metal above here. That's called a fender. Well, this car is sitting on the fenders right now. But so far, I mean, that looks, I love that. This is it, guys. This is as low as, well, for the front, this is as low as we can get. For the rear, we're gonna go even lower. We're gonna go 2 inches lower. So before I get to mounting this thing correctly, because we don't have the right bolts, this thing has been pissing me off a little bit. So I am going to replace these. Pull this thing off, keep it level. Andrew, can you give me a 12 mil? This one's on, I'm gonna do the other one, and then we're finally going to install the tank the right way. So I didn't realize when I was using the bolts to go through the wood on this that it was actually meant to hold the tank to the mounts themselves. So I had to go to Home Depot, but when they told me they had 1-inch bolts in stock, they lied to me when I got there, and it was like a 20-minute drive. So got 1.25 inch stainless, and now I'm gonna cut them a 1/4 inch shorter to what we need. Trying to thread it on, but what do you know, it's perfect. Perfect. Okay, now that we've got them all precisely cut, because, you know, machinist, I'm gonna go ahead and put all of them in, and they're all gonna be the perfect size. Well, this is all set now. This is no longer pissing me off. Ooh, that shut's nice now. All right, now it's on to doing the brakes. Don't worry about that, all right? We have a new one coming.
All right, Austin, what do we got here?
We got the rear brakes.
Rear brakes and no front brakes, because those will be here in 2 months. Just don't ask any questions.
Oh, look at that. We have a, sheesh, we got a rotor.
There's no chance.
There's no chance.
With the caliber, that's not gonna work at all.
They even put a picture of the NSX on there. Look, it's you.
That's not gonna fit, right? Yep, no shot.
The rears, I feel like, are gonna clear by like a few millimeters.
We don't need this, right?
Wait, did you read it now?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool.
This hardware actually looks pretty cool. This is a parking brake bracket. There it is. That's one of our parking brakes. This one's Larry, this one's Roger. By the way, Larry means left, Roger means right. So this is our entire brake setup. We have our calipers, left and right, and our parking brakes. We have our mounting brackets for these guys and these. We have our rotors, hardware, our pads for the big boys, and we've got new brake hoses. So now we have our old brakes off. We're going to take these apart to be able to get them powder coated, and our calipers are going to match the same color as the wrap. So this is going to be pretty cool. There it is. So now we've got this one taken apart. We'll go ahead and do the same thing for the others, so we get them all prepped and ready to be able to send out for powder coating. Big thing is we want to make sure all the rubber, plastics, if there's plastic, make sure all of that is out. So we have our cups, got our brake line off as well, our bleeder screw off. Go ahead and do the same thing to the others. Once this comes back powder coated, it's going to match the same color as the wrap. It's going to look good. All right, so I just picked up our freshly powder coated calipers from Fox Valley Sandblasting. Look at this. Dude, that is such a good color. I can't wait for the wrap. This is gonna look really good. Well, thanks to Mike and the guys, they came in super clutch. This got done within a day. So now, let's go ahead and get these installed. So obviously, before we install these beautiful bastards, we do have to rebuild them, so let's get into it. So what I'm doing here is just spraying a little bit of soap and water on the calipers to get rid of any excess brake fluid that I use to lubricate the seals in the calipers during the rebuild process. These bad boys are good to go. Look at that. These things look so good.
Oh God, it's so good.
Let's go ahead and put these on. Before we put on our beautiful calipers, we're gonna throw on a little bit of anti-seize just on the seat here. Not getting any on the threads and none on the seat, because if I get too much stacked up on here, well, that could affect lug nut torque. That would not be great. So they're gonna go like this. This is for the parking brake. This is for the regular caliper. This is new hardware that's gonna go where that dust shield used to be. Tiny bolts, I like to put a little bit of blue Loctite up. Gabagoo, gabagoo. Torque spec on these guys are, you guessed it, good and tight. Yeah. Now we can go ahead and put the rotor on.
Nice.
Now that our rotor is on, it's clean. I cleaned it with soap and water and sprayed it down with some brake cleaner. We're gonna go ahead and throw on this parking brake. Thread that puppy in. By the way, I already put the brake hose on. Now that our parking brake is on, or our parking brake caliper, now we can slide that in. There's a little spacer there. All right, you see how this parking brake cable is a little floppy? We're gonna go ahead and adjust that. How about it? Move it over here. And you guessed it, good and tight. Now that this stuff is on, it is time to finally put on this guy. So we'll go ahead and slide this. Ooh, just like that. Sheesh! Put these little, what the heck are they called? Jet nuts. Jet nuts, yeah, you remembered. You don't see these often. These are little tiny lock nuts. Throw our hose on and we'll be set to go on this side. It's coming together nicely. I got the brake hose on and we've got some brake fluid coming out, no bubbles, so our gravity bleeding procedure is done. Gonna take a little bit of soap and water, get rid of some of this brake fluid. It's on. So now we're gonna go ahead and do the other side, and wow, that looks so good. Sheesh! All right, so I know Fitment Industries, we're all about perfect fitment. Don't worry, we are getting aftermarket wheels for this. They're not in yet. So unfortunately, I am going to have to use a wheel spacer to be able to clear this caliper. Otherwise, scratch the heck out of it. So as you guys know, we don't have the front calipers yet. We don't know when they're coming. So for the time being, to make sure everything matches, we have this. This is a brake caliper cover. It's fine. So obviously we can't drive like this, but it's gonna look damn good on the ground. All right, so now that we've got the brakes on, Pierce, look away, trust the process. Cutting the fenders.
Why are you cutting the fenders?
We're putting a Liberty Walk widebody kit on this.
All right, carry on.
All right. That is not going back on.